I just wrapped up the Paris Marathon. I got a 3-hour, 28-minute finish, which is about 27 minutes faster than my previous personal best. I started running in 2020 or so, and I did my first marathon in 2020 as well. That first one was about a 4-hour 24, and since then I've done 3 other marathons in between. They were all around that 4-hour mark, with one coming in just under it, one coming in just over it, and the other was my previous PB of 3 hours 56 minutes. So in this video, I want to talk about how I went from getting stuck in kind of that 4-hour range to getting to 3:28. Now, I'm a completely average runner. I don't really have much athletics background at all. I didn't really play any sports in school. So I'm kind of like your average runner, just someone who picked this up a couple of years ago. I'm currently 26 and I've started really enjoying that process. Another thing to note is that prior to this training block for Paris, I hadn't ran in about 9 months. I was also bulking and I was at my heaviest weight ever in January when I started training. I'm going to try and give you 4 or 5 tips that are maybe a little bit less conventional than the normal stuff you would hear in marathon videos. I've watched them all too. So I'm going to try and give you stuff that I hadn't really heard about before, or things that, you know, are a little left of field that really helped me out. Number 1 is going to be a little bit obvious, but that is following a training plan and actually sticking to it. I've followed training plans for all of my marathons, and during them, I thought I was doing well. I thought I was keeping up with the plan. However, looking back, I absolutely wasn't. I was skipping lots of sessions. During sessions, I would, quit early, miss out a couple of miles here and there, thinking it wouldn't matter. And I would essentially just change any speed session into just doing miles easy, because I thought I just need to get the miles in. I wasn't focusing on speed at all. And I was really training just for those marathons, just to finish rather than to get a time. This time around, I took it a lot more seriously. Throughout this training block, I think I missed about 3 sessions or so. There was definitely a couple of sessions that didn't go exactly to the plan, but I was very consistent. I was running 5 days a week. I was doing at least 1 speed session a week, and I did not miss any long runs at all. Whereas in prior training sessions, I'd maybe go out on a Saturday night and then miss a long run on a Sunday, or I'd put my long run on a Saturday and then I would go out on a Saturday night, and that would completely mess up my recovery. And I really tried to avoid that in this training block. I went ahead and I stuck to the plan. I tried to make sure I got all of my long runs in. So there's really 2 things there, and that is getting in them speed sessions and doing that hard work in them sessions that you don't like, and just staying as consistent as you possibly can with that plan. Personally, I used a 3:45 training plan from Runner's World, and that was kind of my target when I initially started training in January. I wanted to go sub 3:45, but as I was hitting every single training session, about midway through February, I just noticed a massive increase in my fitness that I'd never seen before. I was hitting tempo runs and speeds that I'd never really ran before, and everything just kind of fell into place. And it was kind of around the end of February, in a couple of those long runs where I was picking up the pace, that I started to feel like I could go lower than 3:45, and the target on race day ended up being 3:35. But we went out, felt good, and pushed even harder and did that 3:28. Tip number 2 is something that I never would have dreamed doing previously, and that is running without music. Before this training block, I never would have went for a run without at least listening to music or listening to a podcast. That would absolutely terrify me, the thought of going out there without something in my ears to keep me occupied throughout the run. However, I don't know why, but this time around, I started training a lot more without music in my ears. And I started to find that this was key, especially in those speed sessions. So I find that when I'm listening to music, especially I listen to a lot of dance music, and it has, certain BPMs, I find that this type of music just makes me mess up my rhythm. It messes up my breathing. I notice that my heart rate's higher when I'm listening to this type of music. I feel like my cadence is trying to go in beat with the song, and it really messes everything up. Whereas if you just go out there with no earphones in and you hit your speed sessions and you get up to speed, you get your breathing in time, you get your kind of cadence in time, you just kind of get into that zone where you feel good and you feel like you can run for a lot longer without like a song changing up and the BPM changing up and your head's kind of going all over the place. It definitely helped me out. So next time you're running, try it out. I know it sounds awful. I still listen to, kind of podcasts and music on long runs and stuff like that. But for those speed sessions and for the marathon, I absolutely didn't listen to it and I didn't miss it at all. Tip number 3 is training with a friend. Now this time around, I was training training with a friend who was pretty much on the same level as me starting out. In previous training blocks, I had trained with people, but what happened was I was kind of the first in my group to do a marathon, and I ended up, each time I did another one, bringing someone along and getting them to do their first one. So that meant training a lot with them, and a lot of the time they were just a little bit slower than me, and I wasn't pushing my sessions. I wasn't pushing any kind of speed sessions. In long runs, I was running slower probably than I would have liked, and that was fine. It obviously made it more fun for me and them training together. But if you can train with someone who's at your level or just slightly below or slightly above, it's going to make your training sessions a whole lot better. This time I was training with a friend, as I said, who was pretty much at the exact same level as me coming in, and we pushed each other throughout. Each session we were kind of battling and getting a little bit competitive with each other, just getting the most out of each session and pushing each other. Another thing that we did, which you don't have to do, but it definitely made a difference in our training and kept us more committed, but we put a £100 bet on the race. Whoever won £100, which obviously just gives you a little bit of extra motivation. It wasn't even the money that was that significant. It was just that competitive nature. It made things a lot more fun. It made sessions a lot more fun as well. It just gave every session a little bit more of that competitive nature and making things a lot more fun and a lot more interesting when we were out there. Whereas if we're just doing it or you're out training by yourself, things can get boring fast. I'm 100% more likely to quit if I'm out there by myself than I am when I'm out there running with someone else. So try and go out there and find a training partner that you can run with, and it'll help your sessions massively, and try and find someone who's inside your kind of skill level so you can push off each other. In previous marathon training sessions, I would essentially go out there and just pick up like a £50 pair of shoes. It would be the only shoes I would wear through my training, and I'd probably wear the same shoes at the marathon. Now, I didn't know anything about running shoes at that point. However, this time, I learned a lot more about them. I dived into like the science behind them, the different types, makes, models, and types of shoes that there is. I found out about like shoe rotations that you have, and you use different shoes for speed sessions, different shoes for recovery, different shoes for race day. And none of that is necessary, but it definitely helps. This time around, I had a good pair of shoes from the get-go. I think in initial training, I was maybe using shoes that were wrong for me. I have kind of a neutral gait, so I need a neutral shoe. I think previously I was using shoes that had support, and it actually ended up causing me to pick up injuries a lot easier. This time around, at the start of my training, I went and I got fitted in a running shop for a pair of shoes. I ended up going with the New Balance 1080Xs, and this is actually a brand new pair that I just got because I love them so much. They held up really, really well. I did about 400 miles throughout training in them shoes. Throughout training, I pretty much wore that shoe solely at the start, but I did kind of in the tail end, about a month before the marathon, I picked up this, which is the Nike Vaporfly Nyx% 2. They have just released the 3 as well, which I just picked up. I'm going to test them and do a review here on the channel. But these are insane. When I first heard about these and I heard the super shoe term and they make you faster and the pros wear them, I kind of just wrote it off as marketing hype, that these probably aren't going to do anything for me, especially as an average runner, as someone who's not trying to get very marginal gains. But now I've went ahead and used them, I've completely changed my tune on that. I now use these for speed sessions and races, and they feel just so much different to a normal shoe. It doesn't feel like they're impacting you as much. It doesn't feel like you're taking as much of a toll on your body while you're running in these. I actually know some people who are, if they're injured, they'll run in a pair of these or a pair of Alpha Flies. They're insanely light. Like this compared to this shoe is just so much difference. So you don't want to wear these every single day. They say that, if you wear them all the time, your feet are going to become like soft and not as rigid as if you're using just a standard shoe. But on race day, I would highly recommend it. They say about 3 to 4% is how much faster you'll be in these compared to other shoes. Obviously, there's other super shoes from other brands if you prefer them as well. But 3 to 4% across a marathon is a lot of time. If 3% on a 4-hour marathon is 7 minutes. So just by wearing these shoes, you could potentially get 7 minutes off your time. Now, they're not going to completely just allow you to race so much faster. If you don't do the training, you're not going to get anywhere. But this combined with good training, I absolutely love them. They're a fast shoe, and I have picked up, again, as I said, I've picked up the new ones because I like them so much. Last but not least is diet. So as I said, I was bulking coming into the start of the training for this marathon block. I was at my pretty much heaviest weight ever, but in January I started to cut. So I've kind of been doing like a hybrid plan. I was running 5 days a week, and I was also gymming 5 days a week during this training. I wanted to cut just to get a little bit leaner, so I was eating in a calorie deficit every single day. I was trying to eat pretty much whole foods, good foods, and I would allow myself one takeout at the weekend, but I was eating about a 300 calorie deficit. And what I would do is I would add in my calories from my run. So if I ran, 5 mile and burnt 600 calories, or my watch told me I burnt 600 calories, I would eat them calories back. So I wasn't sticking to a rigid calorie amount every single day. I would just go with 2,200 calories, which is about 300 under my maintenance, and then I would add back that 600 from my run, and I would eat 2,800 that day. On days where I didn't run, I would just eat 2,200, and that allowed me to drop quite a lot of weight. Over the course of the marathon training, I dropped about 20 pounds or so. I had 20 pounds there to drop. As I said, I was bulking previously, but just that drop in weight alone, that obviously gave me like a massive increase in my paces, but also just eating healthier and being conscious of the amount of alcohol I was drinking also helped a lot. In January, I did dry January and didn't drink at all for that first month of training. And then for about the 4 weeks before the marathon, I also didn't drink. There was a couple of nights out and stuff like that in February and in between there, but I tried to minimize the damage as much as possible. Again, I made sure to get my runs in around it. If I knew I was going out on a Saturday night, I'd get that long run in on a Saturday, because it's just going to get rode off on the Sunday. It wrecks your recovery and stuff like that. And then you end up messed up and trying to play catch up. Obviously, when you're not drinking as well, you're sleeping better, which means you're recovering better. It just overall is going to improve the quality of your sessions. It's going to increase the rate of progression in your running, and you're going to end up running a lot better race. Now, I would actually love to do a full block where I'm just eating, pretty healthily. Obviously, I allow myself some takeout here and there, or some, dinner out and stuff like that, because if you've absolutely nothing, you just end up quitting on a diet. Now, definitely don't go ahead and cut out everything that you enjoy, but just try and keep your diet a little bit cleaner, eat whole foods, and try and avoid alcohol as much as possible. I do think that was a huge benefit in kind of increasing my speeds this time around. So those are the 3 or 4 main tips that I would give someone trying to go from that 4-hour to 3-hour 30 marathon. Again, the 7 minutes right here is probably a few more minutes if you can drop a bit of weight, and then eating healthy and just sticking to the plan. You're going to be able to do a whole lot better in your next race. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you guys in the next video.